No new COVID rules for England before the new year. The Health Secretary says the government is standing firm despite record figures over Christmas.
We look at the data on a daily basis. That hasn't changed over the Christmas period, but there will be no further measures before the new year.
In Scotland and Northern Ireland, changes have already kicked in, with Scotland also reporting record cases. Also tonight, an emergency meeting between energy bosses and the government in the face of a huge rise in energy prices.
Edged through and gone. Oh, he's bowled him.
Humiliation for England's cricketers. Wickets tumble as Australia close in on the Ashes, and how the rescuer became the rescued. A very happy ending for missing Jono, the search dog.
This is the ITV Evening News with Julie Etchingham.
Good evening. The government says there'll be no new COVID restrictions in England before the new year. That's despite figures just released showing a record number of new cases on Christmas Day. Separate data also shows hospital admissions are up. A rise in cases before the break prompted changes in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. But in the past hour, the Health Secretary Sajid Javid said the government is standing firm for England, despite around 90% of all new cases being the new Omicron variant. Well, our political reporter Shihab Khan has the latest.
With COVID cases continuing to rise, the four nations in the United Kingdom are taking different approaches to tackle it. There are new restrictions in Wales and Northern Ireland, and here in Scotland there's a return to social distancing, and bars like this one are limited to table service. It could have a big impact on business, and those in the sector are worried about losing out during the festive period.
December is what gets you through January, February, when you're going into the cold winter months when people aren't spending money, and we really needed that. The whole industry needed it, so it's really disheartening to be hit with this right at the worst time possible.
There are no new restrictions in England, but rising cases means there's pressure to act. In Christmas Eve, there was 105,000 COVID cases reported in the country. That rose to 113,000 on Christmas Day, before falling to 103,000 on Boxing Day. The latest figure stands at 98,000. 7-day hospital admissions are also up across England, increasing 36% from the last week. But the government is adamant there will be no new restrictions for the rest of the year.
Well, of course, we look at the data on a daily basis. That hasn't changed over the Christmas period, but there will be no further measures before the new year. We won't be taking any further measures. Of course, people should remain cautious as we approach New Year celebrations, and take a lateral flow test if that makes sense. Celebrate outside if you can. Have some ventilation indoors if you can. Please remain cautious. And when we get into the new year, of course, we will see then whether we do need to take any further measures, but nothing more until then, at least.
But those on the front line are warning that as pressure on the NHS mounts, the need for further action might be inevitable.
If you add that high hospitalisation rate to the number of NHS staff who are themselves unable to work because they have the virus, you're in a very difficult set of circumstances. And in those circumstances, it's important that the government continues to encourage us to behave in the ways which minimise the chances of us getting this virus or passing it on.
As the festive period draws to an end, if cases and hospitalisations continue to rise, pressure will mount for further measures.
Well, we'll speak to Shihab shortly some more about whether change is ahead in England. But as he was saying, the other parts of the UK have already reintroduced restrictions. In Scotland, there was also a record number of new cases on Christmas Day, more than 11,000. Well, our reporter in Inverness, Nicola McCally, says the new restrictions there will have a big impact on New Year celebrations.
When it comes to Hogmanay, it's going to be a rather more sedate affair here north of the border. Pubs like the one behind me are back to social distancing, 1 metre apart, table service, and no more than 3 households at a time can meet. When it comes to outside events, no more than 500 people are allowed to gather, and that's put paid to things like Edinburgh's famous Hogmanay celebrations. So the bells this year will be chiming rather more quietly than normal.
So what might be around the corner in England, Shihab, as promised, is here. And I suppose really it's that weighing up the Prime Minister has had to do today between the data put in front of him and the pressure from his party and others beyond too.
Absolutely. If there are any new major restrictions that comes in, we know for a fact that MPs will have to be recalled if that was to happen now. MPs would have to debate it, and we've seen there's been a lot of pressure from backbenchers within his party who aren't particularly keen on having new restrictions. We saw rebellions when he's tried to push things through. That is a difficult thing he has to navigate. On the other side of it, we're seeing Scotland and Wales, Northern Ireland putting in new restrictions. You've just seen the data. The data suggests that cases are going up. Hospitalisations is the key. How the NHS handles any further rise in hospitalisations, that is what will determine whether the Prime Minister needs to act. You heard from the Health Secretary, they are looking at the data regularly. That continues to happen, and that remains a priority moving forward.
OK, Shihab, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, there's more bad news for the High Street, which is still reeling from the effects of COVID and lockdown. Stores hoping to see a big rush of customers for the traditional Boxing Day sales were disappointed. Figures suggest they were down more than 40% compared with pre-pandemic levels. From Coventry, Ben Chapman reports.
It wasn't what you'd call a rush to the shops in Coventry this morning. People choosing to forego their face masks and browse for a bargain online at home instead of venturing out, making this the quietest post-Christmas sales that Kathy has ever known.
Is it a little bit dispiriting?
It's disheartening, you know, when I've worked here for 30 years, so we've seen mega crowds, you know, people queuing up out of the doors for Debenhams. I think there's a mixture of reasons. Obviously, the Omicron virus has put a lot of people off coming in.
Across the country, 38% fewer people visited a high street on Boxing Day than before the pandemic. In retail parks, the numbers were 40% lower. Shopping centres were hit even harder with a drop of 48%. Signs the pandemic may have permanently changed even Christmas shopping habits.
There will clearly be a somewhat permanent shift where more stuff is bought online than was in, you know, previous years, pre-pandemic times. So that will stay. But we do see people return to the shops as restrictions go down.
A reluctance to wear masks and a fear of busy spaces have put shoppers off. Like most retailers, this menswear store depends on Christmas trade to keep them going through January and February. But they remain optimistic that customers will return.
The High Street has a lot to offer, a hell of a lot to offer. And only by coming into the High Street you'll notice that.
And what are those things? What do you need to give people?
We need to give them the shopping experience. We need to show them that we're just not one-trick ponies. We need to show people that we're here and we're here to stay.
High streets were livelier today as more big shops opened their doors, but with numbers still down significantly on 2 years ago, the clamour for a Boxing Day bargain could be a thing of the past. Ben Chapman, ITV News, Coventry.
The Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, held an emergency meeting with energy bosses today. They want the government to help stop big price rises next year, but there was no such offer. Martha Fairley is at the Department for Business for us this evening. No help from the government, at least not yet.
No help for energy firms or for consumers, all of whom are struggling with this growing energy crisis as wholesale gas prices continue to soar. It's already seen almost 30 energy companies go out of business since September, and it's clearly so urgent that energy firm leaders, bosses and the Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, met today, Christmas bank holiday, albeit virtually, to discuss it. Now, the body that represents the energy firms, Energy UK, says they are looking for a suite of measures from the government, including a VAT holiday and additional fuel grants to help people, because when we come to April next year, they say things are only going to get worse.
Current estimates are that the price cap's going to go up by an awful lot this spring. It's going to have to go up to recover some of the costs of both supplier failure and the impact that's had on the market, and also because of higher gas prices. So we're seeing estimates of around, the price cap being set around £2,000 this spring, which is an awful lot of money. That's the average household bill.
Now, 4.5 million people in the UK are currently in fuel poverty. If those price rises do go ahead, as is predicted, then we could see another 1 million people in fuel poverty really struggling to pay their household bills, and potentially more energy firms in danger of collapse.
Martha, thank you very much indeed for that. The funeral for Archbishop Desmond Tutu will take place on Saturday, New Year's Day. A requiem for the anti-apartheid campaigner will be held at St George's Cathedral in Cape Town, his parish church, where his ashes will be interred. Here, West Mercia Police have apologised to the family of Dalian Atkinson 6 months after an officer was jailed for manslaughter. The former Aston Villa player was killed after PC Benjamin Monk tasered him and kicked him in the head. And police are investigating a video in which a masked figure holding a crossbow says he intends to assassinate the Queen. A 19-year-old man was arrested on Christmas Day in the grounds of Windsor Castle. He's now been sectioned under the Mental Health Act. Now, if you thought it was all over for England's hopes of winning the Ashes, it could be soon. They need to win the third test to avoid a series defeat. But despite a fight back by the bowlers, the batting collapsed yet again. Chris Scudder has the action from Melbourne, where Australia are closing in on victory.
Sometimes it's just the hope that kills you.
And he's got him.
England's attack got them back in the match.
Oh, he's got him, bowled him, and it's Smith.
The fast bowling was hostile and they roughed up the old enemy. For the first time in the series, the tourists looked to be getting the upper hand.
That is a very good shout from Jack Leach.
Australia were bowled out for 267, a first innings lead of 82 that brought some hope.
That's it. Mark Woods finished it off.
But then it was England's turn to bat again, and you knew what was coming.
Oh, has that taken the edge? Everyone's celebrating, but the finger's gone, though.
And the very next ball from Stark, England were in tatters.
Close, it's close, and up goes the finger.
Another collapse, albeit against some sensational fast bowling.
Oh, edge through and gone. That's Hamid gone, Boland into the attack.
And with England trying to hang on, they crumbled.
Oh, he's bowled him, leaving it alone. Oh dear, England are imploding here.
The shadow of defeat looms again, and unless Captain Root can come up with a Christmas miracle, the Ashes are lost. There is one other long shot of at least saving the match. There'll be more COVID tests among the players before play restarts, amid fears of a surge in cases. It might be England's only hope of avoiding defeat. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
And finally, Jono is a German pointer who helps track missing people with the search and rescue in Norfolk. But she went missing herself 4 days before Christmas. And despite a relentless search by her owner, she couldn't be found until today. Mark McQuillan on a happy reunion.
This was the moment Ian Danks had longed for, but feared wouldn't happen. A man reunited with his best friend after 6 days of searching.
I can't believe how much people are doing for me and my family for our dog. But it's not just about our dog, it's a member of Lowland Rescue, and this is what it means to everyone from Lowland Rescue.
A team of more than 60 had been looking for Jono after she went missing in a woods near Great Yarmouth.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to get used to these search areas down here.
The search and rescue dog is used to helping bring others to safety, but now roles were reversed and the hunt was on to find one of their own. Leads were hard to come by, but finally, a breakthrough.
They think they found her. They think they found her.
This drive for the big reunion seemed so doubtful for so long, but a drone pilot proved his pedigree by spotting Jono on a small island nearby.
Well, we're looking for a high-vis vest, because we knew she's wearing a yellow high-vis. I zoomed in, but I was probably flying at about 30 metres and then zoomed the camera in, and she looked up at the drone as well. So, yes, and she just sat there in the reed bed.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
This was a tale with a very happy ending, the perfect Christmas gift for Jono's owner. It may have arrived a couple of days late, but Ian won't mind that one bit. Mark McQuillan, ITV News.
And that's all for now. I'll be back just after 10. Till then, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.